Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the first Game All Night Top 5 Countdown with a friend. I called in Ambie of Board Game Blitz to come help me out with our first ever Top 5 Countdown. Hi Ambie, how are we doing tonight?
Hi, doing well. Excited.
Great. So the reason Ambie's here is because we're doing 18XX, and she is, I'd say you're kind of about the same into 18XX, about the same depth, maybe a little bit more than me. So I thought it would be a good person to pair with, right?
Yeah, I've been playing for a couple years now. So I'm still like relatively new compared to a lot of 18XX people, but I've played a lot of different games, I think.
Right, and I think that that's going to kind of make our list a little different than, like, if you went to check out some of the other lists out there, because, we're still kind of new. We're still kind of figuring out what style of game we like and everything. So if you're just getting into it, chances are some of the ones on our list will be good for that, but we'll see. So speaking of our list, Ambie, you kind of had it easy. How did you make your list?
So I recently did a top 100 list for Board Game Blitz, so I kind of took the games that were on there because I included 18XX games on there. So for that list, I took games that I'd played at least twice and ranked them using PubMeeple, which is a ranking website. Basically takes two games and puts them next to each other, and then you pick which one you like better.
Yeah, and it's a good tool if you ever want to make the list. It helps because every now and then you get that one where you're just like, well, this one, do you like it better? It makes the hard choices, but it's good. I like the algorithm on it. I did the same thing. For me, I had to play it 2 times as well. We kind of came up with those numbers on our own, but I think that works. And why don't we get into this?
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to allow the guests to lead off, and we'll start with our number 5 and alternate and go backwards. And if we happen to run into one that the other person has on our list, because it's so small, we're just going to kind of let it go, and we'll just catch up on the other side of that. So without further ado, Ambie, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is 1860, Railways on the Isle of Wight, which I've actually only played 3 times, and the last time I played was a long time ago. I think 2016 still. So I really want to play it again.
Okay.
But what's interesting about 1860? It's pretty complicated. There's a lot of route building nuances. It's pretty hard to build the routes, but you want to have a really good company because at the end of the game there's nationalization, and each corporation just disappears one by one or 2 by 2. The worst running corporation disappears first, and so then the good ones keep running. So like if you have that good corporation, it just multiplies, and you really want that good one. So I like that. Also, it's good with 3 players, and we had heard it's good with 2 players, and like we played it 2 players, but that was 2 years ago, so I don't know if we would still like it with 2 players, which is why I want to play it again. But I remember really liking it.
So is it a small, tight map like some of the other 2-player 18XX, or is it a little larger?
Yeah, I think it's pretty small. I can't picture it right now.
Of course not, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a great choice, and I've yet to play that one, so I'll be really interested to try that one out. So my number 5 is 1861, which is Russia, which also has the nationalism, the railroad that comes out at the end that runs by communism. So it kind of starts gobbling up other railways as we go. I also really like the map because you really have to build a long, thin network, and it takes a while to build the route in that one. But I think it's really rewarding because you can really get in there and have a lot of fun with those when you get there. And I would kind of lump Canada in here because it uses a lot of the similar systems. But Russia was definitely one of the early ones, and one I love too. So awesome. So that's our number 5s. So that brings us to number 4.
My number 4 is 1857, which is one of the Winsome 18XX games.
Okay.
Which means it's very difficult to acquire.
Yay.
But 1857, if you own it, it's good as a learning game because it's really fast. Okay. We play a game in like 2 hours on average. Wow. Which is fast for an 18XX game. But,
yeah, very.
Yeah. So it's similar rules to 1830, but there's one less train of each type. So there's a really fast train rush. And it goes really fast and someone goes bankrupt. So I really like that.
Sounds interesting. I haven't had a chance to try any of the Winsome ones yet. They just, I guess they are pretty rare because nobody in my group has, well, my immediate group has them. I'm sure my extended group, there's some people who have a lot. It sounds kind of interesting, though. Really, one train of each?
But one less train of each than
one less. Okay.
1830.
Gosh. So it's a very fast train rush. All right. So my number 4 is 18OE, which is kind of the big dog. Now, I've only gotten just maybe 2 plays of this in, once on a half map, once on a full map. And the full map, I know you have it because I've seen your picture of the nice, glorious box. And it's, I love the scale of it. It's pretty. It's arguably one of the prettiest 18XX games, I'd have to say. And it's just, I love the way the companies have so many different tiers because they have to grow up into majors and 10-share companies and from 5-share. It's just, there's so much going on that, I definitely love playing this one, especially when you can set aside a day for it.
Yeah, if you're playing the full game, you definitely need to set aside a day for it.
I mean, the map is huge, and it's all the small hex tiles. I mean, they're not Wargame hex small, but they're like maybe an inch across, 2 centimeters. They're tiny tiles for 18XX, and it gets tight.
Yeah, like we have a pretty good-sized dining table, and we had to bring in an extra table for the side things, like all the company charters, because there's like 30-something corporations.
Right. It gets insane. We almost had to, we did the same thing because we played in a game store, and we literally had the table behind us was just all the charters, and then we played the game on the other one. And then, of course, you're managing a bunch of companies, so you need your own personal space to spread out. But, man, you can't get much better than that. Right. So that's a good number 4. I'm happy with these. So, and you've already showed me 2 new games. So what's your third? Is this going to be a new one to me as well?
I don't know. My number 3 is 1849.
Okay.
Which is, I think, Sicilian Railways. There's, in the map there's mountains everywhere, and you're poor, so you have to pay for a bunch of track, and it's hard to do that. But you can float a company with just the president share, and it's incremental capitalization. So the company doesn't have that much money because it just has what you put into it. Okay. But the corporation can issue shares to get more money, which is really interesting. And it's like a big timing game. I've only played it 3 times. We had played it once back when we first started, and then we played it again recently. And it was so interesting because the timing is very important with the trains.
Right.
Because once there's a train rush, you can't, you get screwed. But you have to like issue shares before the train rush because you have to issue it before the turn that you use the money.
Right, because if you can't issue it after the fact, you need to plan ahead.
Yeah, so you have to plan ahead and manage the timing right, depending on what other people are doing too. And also in our games, we've played 2 games recently, and in each game, someone has been in last, and then that person has been in first later on in the game, and then like back to second or last again. So Like
Wow.
even if you're in dead last, you can still come out ahead. So it's really exciting.
Interesting. That sounds like there's a lot going on there that you really kind of got to pay attention to. And man, I always find those games that don't have full capitalization or at least partial caps, oh, they're challenging because that's trying to time it and get the stocks right. And I end up buying all my own shares as much as possible because no one else will help me float a company sometimes, and it's frustrating. And then you hit stock limits. It's that's a whole part of the game I'm still trying to work my way through. So that one sounds very interesting. And tight. I'm sure it's tight with the mountains. You're trying to fight for some passes and things.
Yeah, well, everything's mountains. Well, there's also different types of gauge tracks. So narrow gauge is cheaper to build on mountains, but it's harder to run your trains through them. So there's complications in the rules there. So it's a more complicated game, but it's really fun.
Interesting. I'll have to give that a shot for sure. Well, in my number 3 kind of sits in the middle of the list, and this is where a lot of people had 1830 as their main introduction game. Well, 46 Race for the Midwest kind of fits that niche for me. It's the one that kind of got me back into the hobby after I went bankrupt 30 years ago and kind of swore off the game system. But then I came back in with the auctions, and I really, really enjoy the way 46 does the auctions and the bidding. And the new production by GMT is just outstanding. It's thick, it's chunky, it's beautiful. This is definitely like the board gamers version of 18xx now. I think, if you're ready to make that jump in, and you want to deal with the privates, the individual companies, and the stock markets. I like a game that you can get triple jumps, and this is one of the few you can make that happen. But Race for the Midwest, it's just solid, and I don't think you can really go wrong with it. And it's kind of available now.
Yeah, one of the few that's actually available.
Easily available.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to number 2.
My number 2 is 1880 China, which I think is actually one of the prettiest 18xx games. I like the art in it, so it has a dragon on the cover, like one of the few that doesn't have a train on the cover.
I know, right?
Yeah. But I like the gameplay too. So in 1880 China, this is the one that I've talked the most about on our podcast, and my co-hosts know about the communism in it because I mentioned that. So there's communism in the middle of the game, and the stock prices don't move at all. So you can withhold as much as you want or do anything, sell shares, and the stock prices don't move. So that's kind of exciting. Also, you start out with foreign companies.
Foreign investors.
They're kind of like miners. Foreign investors, yeah. So you have that, and then they're linked to the first corporation you float. And then when you connect them up on the route, then they can get absorbed into the corporation, and all their money can go there. So it's really cool timing that and trying to get a lot of money to go into your corporation, and then they can buy a great train. And then, so that's really exciting. Also, I like that you can own 100% of your corporation, because in a lot of 18xx games, you're limited to 60% or something. But in 1880, you can own 100%. So if you're sneaky, I did this once. I had a corporation that looked like it was bad, and people sold my shares and didn't buy any. And so I bought 100%, and then that corporation ended up being great.
Yeah, cool. That I've run into that in China. I've ended up having to own my own company because no one else would fund it, and I need money. No, I love 1880 for all the reasons you said. It's really after 46 got me back in, 80's the one that made me stay, because I think one of the important things when people are discovering 18xx is that it's good to stick with one for a little while just to get really comfortable and understand the systems a little bit and the turn order and how things move, rather than try and hop around and try a ton of different ones at first. I found it really helpful because I must have played 80 like 5-6 times before I went off and started playing other ones, just to kind of, yeah, just to get that feel for it and everything. So, no, I totally agree. So my number 2 is going to be the other small hex one, and that's 1822, Great Britain. That one actually just saw a new expansion came out for it. I've yet to play with, but that just apparently 18XX gets expansions too now. So be interested to see. What I love about this one is you actually have concessions where you can actually build your companies out, but you have to buy the concession before you can do that. And the concessions they're random. So some areas might not even open up until later in the game. You might get stuck in the north by yourself, but that might be a great thing. I love that the miners are bid in an auction system that kind of reminds me of the Las Vegas game, not Lords of Vegas, the other one, that I love the way it works around, but you still get stuck having to make some difficult choices, and you might get stuck buying a lot of stuff that you didn't necessarily intend when you're trying to bid other people up. And I think you can run a lot of risk there. And it's another one that's like really pretty to look at, and it's nice. And I like good aesthetics in a game, and that you don't always come by that with the 18XX. You definitely don't. So coming in at number 1, so if I had a drum roll, I'd insert it here. But what is your favorite 18XX game? I also imagine it's probably, I don't know if it's going to be a surprise, but I kind of thought it was 80, so I'm not really sure what this is going to be. So it'll be a surprise for me.
Yeah. So my number 1 currently, my 18XX game, is 1889, which I think is a good intro 18XX game, but also it's fun with people who are more experienced, or like my experience level.
And that's Japan, right?
Yeah, so 1889 is History of Shikoku Railway, I think is what the full name is. Yeah. But so it's similar rules to 1830, which is why I think it's like simpler rules, but the map is smaller, and so I think the route laying is a little easier. There's no like double towns like in 1830. Also, because it's a smaller map, and also the bank is small, so it's a shorter play time, which makes it a good intro game too. So it's like 3 hours or something on average, 2 to 3 hours.
Right.
Depends. But I've played it 11 times now, and it plays differently depending on how the players play. So it could be more like an 1830 style stock shenanigans and bankruptcy game, but it can also be a game where people are running good routes and companies are more important. So like depending on how aggressively you play, I've played games where the 3 trains ended up being permanent, and I've played games where people went bankrupt on the 6 trains. So there's very different games. So I really enjoy 1889 at this point. We've been playing it a lot.
It's one that I actually own because I made a print and play of it, but I've yet to actually get it to the table.
Yeah, so I think another reason that I'm partial to it is because we made a print and play of it. So this was our second print and play, and we knew how to do and play by then, because our first print and play was actually 1849, and we didn't know what we were doing, and it didn't turn out very well. But then we made 1889, and I think it looks nice, and I also like painted the tokens for the different colors. So I like our print and play version of it.
Well, there's definitely a hobby side to this that some people can really get into, and I totally understand that. All right. Well, my first one really shouldn't be a huge surprise. I gushed about it when you brought up 1880 China, and like let's put it this way: I actually have a neoprene mat made of the board that I printed out. I love it. It because I played it so much and I know the system. It's one I'm very competitive in. I love that you can own the whole company and the turn order. The turn order in this one is amazing because it's based solely on par value. Like when you select your par value, that will determine your turn order for the rest of the game. So you don't have to worry about stock price falling back and all that to determine the turn order. And you can really be strategic because it also triggers the trains and when the stock rounds happen. So you have the last person to buy a train, I believe, sets the next marker for the next round, so it can make it all the way through until somebody else buys trains, and then it'll slow down the stock purchase. It's so good, so good. But
yeah, and timing the stock round is great too. Like if you when you buy the last train, that's when the stock round starts. So if you make it so that you have a lot of money, you just paid out dividends, and other people haven't yet, and then the stock round starts, you have all this money.
exactly, and then you have communism where you can withhold at no penalty. It's like it's a beautiful thing. There's so much going on that I don't think I've encountered in other 18xx games. It was a great game. So, well, that's our top 5. Do you have any honorable mentions in that list, maybe that were on the edge or almost made the cut, but still maybe we might want people to know about?
So yeah, my 6 and 7. My number 6 was Rolling Stock, which I'm not sure. Like some people say it's an 18xx game, and some people say maybe it's not. But it's a card game so it doesn't have any track laying, but it's a card stock game, which is really, really interesting. And what I like about it is that the stock market seems more thematic because when you buy a share, you're buying it, the share price will increase, and then you're buying it at that increased price. And when you sell a share, the share price decreases, and then you buy it at that decrease, or you sell it at that decreased price. Right. So, like, it's a lot of stock stuff. So,
it helps you understand those dynamics. If the stock market is a big hang up and you just don't get it, this at least helps you kind of feel that out. I kind of found it's kind of like a trainer game that way almost.
Yeah, but it gets really deep. So, yeah. And then my other honorable mention is 1817. I've only played it 2 times, maybe 3.
Okay.
So 1817 is a longer game. It takes, I don't know, like 6 or 7 hours.
It's a meat one too.
yeah. So that one has a lot of stock things going on. You can short sell other people's corporations. So if you think they're not going to do well, you can basically like take a loan out on it and then do something with money and hope that that corporation goes bankrupt. So it's really interesting. And we got to play it once with people who played it over 100 times. Right. And they were really good, and they had all these different things that they were thinking about. And it was great just seeing what they were thinking about. And obviously, it has a lot of replay value.
Right. It's one that I actually know of a group, and they play it like every Friday. They play 17 constantly. There's a lot of diehards. And now 18 USA re-implements 17, but uses the whole USA as a map, and that's coming out soon. So I'll be curious to see how that plays. But haven't got a chance to try it yet. So I just had a couple. Mexico, I loved 18MX. It's great for 3. It's nice, it's tight. There's a little bit of a national in it with the National Railroad. I find that one a lot of fun. I also am really enjoying 18CZ, even though I've only gotten to play it like maybe twice. I think we've one learning game. And then one real game, and that's proving to be pretty interesting stuff. And then Cleveland would be my last one, 18 CLE. I actually, when I ran into you at Gen Con last year, you were going to go play that. And it kind of like, I never heard of it, and I checked it out. And it's really neat. And I like how it actually like shows off the Depression era, because the browns actually go down in value and then the silvers come back up. So it's interesting how it kind of slows down the game right at the end, but then everybody rushes to get through that so that they can get out of the Depression and kind of get to the end game as fast as possible. So that was close. That was Mexico and that were fighting for number 6. So that was cool. So that's a great list. I mean, there are I haven't played 3 of those. I've cut out Japan, but I haven't played it yet. So that's really cool. I got a lot of new games I want to try out. So this has been awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you, Ambie, for being on. If people want to find you, where do you think they should go? Because you're all over the place.
Yeah, so I have a podcast called Board Game Blitz. So we're Board Game Blitz on a bunch of social media places. You can go to www.boardgameblitz.com. That's our website. And for my personal social media, I'm Ambie Rona pretty much everywhere. So you can find me there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ambie, for being on. It's late here. It's early there. So I think it's time to call it a night. Well, it's not almost midnight there. So
yes.
All right. Well, thanks for being on. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoy some 18xx the next time you game all night. Have a good night.
Angry octopus.